So I just recently set up a monster aquarium. I set up this Waterbox 220 here, and really it's my dream tank build. I have the aquascape all done finally. All the equipment is in place. Well, for the most part. But before I can even think about, adding beautiful corals and beautiful fish to this guy, I need to get this thing cycling. So my plan for the cycling process is to use bottled bacteria, specifically Dr. Tim's Fishless Cycle. Now, I wanted to do a fishless cycle because obviously ammonia is toxic to fish gills. I don't want to hurt my fish in the process. So definitely, fishless cycle was the way to go. However, it is my first time using bottled bacteria in the two tanks that I've had in the past, my BioCube 29 gallon and my Innovative Marine 40 gallon. I've always depended on live rock and then established media from the previous tank to get my tank cycling. So having no experience using these kinds of products, I admit it's a little bit, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. However, I've really heard great things about Dr. Tim's and, I figured why not try it because I definitely want a clean slate with this tank. I don't want to bring any of the pests from the other tank onto this one. It's just not worth the risk because trying to get rid of that stuff in a tank of this size is just next to impossible. So want to have a clean slate, that is for sure. So what I ended up using is I used Dr. Tim's one and only nitrifying bacteria. What I ended up doing, because this tank has been cycling for like 4 days now, what I did is I added the one and only into the tank, just dumped the whole thing. And then over the past few days, I have been adding ammonia to the tank to get the process started. So I've been testing my water every day. I've been really good. I've been using API tests just because they're, super fast and super easy. Although I don't usually use them on my tanks, it's made the process a lot more bearable, having to check everything every day. But so far, the cycling process has been going great. I've seen the ammonia rise. I've seen the ammonia drop slightly, and I'm starting to see some nitrite.
It's pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting to have the tank finally start cycling. So it's actually kind of crazy how bottle bacteria cycles your tank in a week. 2 weeks. It's just such a foreign concept to me. But either way, I'm not planning on adding fish to this guy anytime soon because my quarantine tank just finished cycling. I really want to make sure that all my fish have been thoroughly quarantined before they get in here. I don't want, any parasites and diseases in this thing. And obviously it's just good practice to quarantine everything, right? But anyway, I'm not planning on adding fish anytime soon because the quarantine tank I had set up actually sprung a leak, which was awful because I had to recycle with a new tank and everything. And it was just I should have started the quarantine process much earlier. But unfortunately, because of that leak, I'm just going to be adding fish sometime soon. So fish are going to be out of quarantine by the time, after this tank has cycled. So it's kind of concerning because, to keep that cycle going, you need to have, the fishy poop. So I'm not gonna have the fishy poop in here. So it's a little troubling, but I'm gonna get fish in here as soon as possible, but not rush the quarantine process at the same time because that wouldn't be good. So the quarantine tank here has cycled officially. I know I should be ready for fish anytime now. Reason I'm kind of holding back is I still have so much to learn about the quarantine process. This is my first quarantine tank I've ever set up. Having had only really small tanks and limited fish options as a result, I haven't had much experience with fish at all. At all. The fish I did have for my smaller tanks, they're pretty hardy fish and they're not really known to be susceptible to diseases and parasites, so I just kind of got really lucky. But quarantine is essential for this tank. With all the fish I'm adding and for example, the tangs, which are ick magnets, it's kind of quarantine is absolutely essential for a project like this. However, having had no experience, the quarantine tank process is a little bit overwhelming. Before I feel comfortable adding fish in this guy, I definitely have to become a fish parasite and disease expert. Right now, I don't really know what to recognize and also come up with some kind of schedule. There are 30 medications out there. I can't pronounce half of them. So I need to figure that stuff out and ASAP because we needed fish in here yesterday. So hopefully I can get a intensive, rigorous schedule program here and become comfortable with the identification of all these, fish problems. Hopefully sooner than later. But Yeah, quarantine tank.
Cycle, baby.
But a little update on my equipment. The BioBricks arrived. Woo! I placed them in my sump. However, based on a comment I received in my last video, someone was mentioning how I should have gotten the smaller bricks, you know, to have better filtration going through them. I mean, like more water volume, fit nicer in my sump. And I figured, well, I already bought these BioBricks and I don't really want to go through the process of returning them. So what I ended up doing is I just ended up cutting them into thirds and realizing that I bought probably too many, that it would be overkill. So I'm just saving the other two for when they need to be replaced. So right now I just have 2 cut up BioBricks. So essentially like 6 pieces. BioBricks are in the tank. I also added the lights that I was talking about installing. However, I probably could have gone with 2 strips going around because it's still a little dark in there. A little too dark for my liking. So gonna have to go back and redo that. Those BioBricks are gonna be super useful to my tank though. You know, really important feature of this build, because I have such a minimalist aquascape, there definitely needs to be some extra biological filtration down here in the sump. You know, it's like kind of like this weird misconception in the hobby that you need to like pump your display full of like as much rock as you can, like wall to wall, like back to front, just like way too much rock. I think people like forget that, you know, you have options like these BioBricks and, you know, even just adding like live rock or, you know, extra rock in your sump for that same filtration that you need. You don't really need to have that much rock in your display as far as your fish are accounted for. You can definitely, you know, you don't have to, you know, fill it all up with rock. You definitely want space for flow and corals. But also what comes in handy if you keep rocks in your sump, for example, is that you can easily like transfer them to a new tank if you need to establish a new tank. Say you want to add like more rock to your aquascape in the future, having like rocks cycled ready on hand, like just ready to go, is really convenient. So
Yeah, I don't know.
BioBricks are just really essential for me, particularly because of this minimalist, complete like lack of rock going on here. I also got a really cool piece of equipment that I'm pretty excited about. So the other day I was thinking, man, like water changes on this beast is just gonna be such a mission. I was thinking logistically, how am I going to physically bring the water here and dispose of it? Because I mean, the way I currently do it on my teeny tiny 40 gallon is I just, you know, siphon the water out into a bucket. I think I dumped that bucket out like twice, and then, you know, I carry like 4 5-gallon jugs, but like filled halfway because I don't really have any muscles. So it makes it easier to carry. But if you think of that, if I were to do like, say like a 20% water change on here and I filled those 5-gallon jugs halfway, that'd be like 8 jugs, y'all. Like that would be around 8 jugs. And I already despise water changes enough, and that's really going to be the tipping point for me. So I was definitely looking for something that can make that whole process easier on me, because I was just like, that's not really gonna happen with frequency, knowing me. So I got the idea to actually get like a cool pump. I was inspired actually by the video of filling up this tank where we kind of used a pump to bring all that water all the way from outside in the truck into this tank. And I was like, I want that. I want a system just like that. So what I ended up doing is I got this sump pump. I got a handy dandy sump pump, and I plan on putting this or using this to pump all that water that I will have in my garage near my RODI unit with like an 100-foot hose. So it's gonna be pretty crazy. In terms of the sump pump, I'm actually a little bit concerned that it might be like too much power, like it might be overkill. And I don't know, I really have to just test it out, I guess. Anyway, the idea of a sump pump is pretty cool. Like the water changes will be the easiest thing ever, but I still have to figure out how I want to remove the water. I've been tossing up whether I should just get like a massive hose and use it as a siphon and like put it out the dog door and just dump it outside, or whether I should just go the more traditional route with siphon and bucket. But I'm thinking, man, like tipping out all those water buckets, I mean, you know, but I think I'm just getting a bit lazy with it because, you know, I don't think it'll be that much. And with the sump pump, you know, it's not too much to ask that I dump a few buckets out. You know what I mean? Gotta figure something out for that. But either way, I am super excited about the sump pump. I think it's the best decision I've made. But yeah, guys, I'm super excited for this tank. It's like coming along. I'm so happy that I have started the cycling process now and that we're one step closer. This is like all surreal. But yeah, stay tuned. I'll give an update soon on how this baby goes. Look how pretty the aquascape is. I just love it so much. Oh, hey, here's the comment I was talking about. Appreciate the advice, Harold. Hopefully those severed biobricks will have the same effect. Hopefully. And right, sumps are just a whole new level of reefing. I don't really know how I managed without one, but so happy that we joined the Sump Club. We are officially real reefers now. And Austin, tell me why I didn't even think about this. I've never had a control system on any of my tanks before, as you can tell. But this opens up a whole new world of cable management possibilities. I'm really excited about it. And just because I look forward to cleaning the brown sludge from my skimmer does not mean I'm crazy. Okay, maybe slightly. But joke's on you, I was crazy long before the skimmer.